tragic accident, or calculated murder?
Now let's see the elevations.
Investigators reopen a 55-year-old mystery.
This was a major world event.
Brakes!
What caused a crash that killed the UN Secretary General?
It was devastating.
This gentleman was a champion of world peace.
How did a top-secret peace mission in Africa end in death?
It's tough to see how they could have screwed this up.
Certain people believe it's just not possible that Dag Hammarskjöld was killed in a common accident. It had to be something more.
Controversial theories abound.
Dag Hammarskjöld was murdered. Period.
But the truth may finally be within reach.
As an investigator, I don't want to close any doors.
Swedish air crash investigator Sven Hammarskjöld is entering a world of intrigue and deadly Cold War conspiracies. A special commission reporting to the UN needs him to determine whether a 1961 air disaster was an accident or an assassination.
The commission knew that I had some experience in that field of old aircraft accidents, so they called me.
The pressure is on to get to the bottom of an aviation mystery that's as controversial today as it was 55 years ago.
There's a wide range of things that have never, ever been adequately considered. They might not bring the ultimate truth, but it requires to look carefully again.
Hammarskjöld studies the events from the night of the fateful flight. A United Nations transport plane, the Albertina, is on a vital mission in Central Africa.
Estimate of B Mandola at 2347. Arrival time 0020.
The destination is Ndola Airport in the British colony of Northern Rhodesia.
Roger. Ndola weather. Wind 120 at 7 knots. Visibility 5 to 10 miles with a slight smoke haze.
Controllers and local dignitaries anxiously await the arrival of one of the most important people in the world.
Set altimeter to 30.15.
Roger. Request descent clearance at 57.
Roger at 57. Clear to descend to 6,000 feet.
On board the DC-6 is UN Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld.
At least they're willing to talk. What else do we know about their latest demands?
He's flying in from the Congo to hold high-level peace talks with a rebel leader.
Hammarskjöld and most likely members of his entourage on board were pretty aware that this is a difficult mission. It was a Secretary General for whom a physical risk was an integral part of his job.
All right. Descending to 6,000, nil traffic ahead.
6,000.
25-year-old Per Hallenquist.
Our visibility should be pretty good once we get down there.
29-year-old Lars Litten is Hallenquist's first officer.
The life of flying a transport airplane in the Congo during the 1960s, during the decolonization era, was indeed a fantastic challenge for everyone.
Former pilot and NTSB investigator Robert McIntosh flew transport missions for the UN throughout the 60s.
During my time in the Congo, I was probably a lucky guy because there were mercenaries around and I never found any bullet holes in the aircraft that I was flying.
7,000.
All right. Give me 2,000 RPM and 20 inches.
Minimum descent altitude?
That's 5,000 feet, but we'll have the runway in sight long before then.
The flight left the Congolese capital Leopoldville a little more than 6 hours ago. For security reasons, it's flown an indirect route to Ndola.
They made arrangements in the route of the plane to avoid any unpleasant surprises.
Number one, we need to extend the ceasefire. We can't be seen as being the enemy here.
To prevent an ambush, no flight plan has been filed, and the pilots have maintained radio silence for most of the flight. The mission is a closely guarded secret.
Are you proceeding to Salisbury after Ndola?
Negative.
Even at this late stage, the crew needs to be secretive about the mission.
Are you staying in Ndola?
They don't know who might be listening in.
Negative.
Due to parking difficulties, would like to know your intentions.
We will give them on the ground.
Roger.
The security of the airport and of the flying environment was sometimes in question. There were opportunities for counter forces to perhaps shoot at aircraft that were on final approach.
Pre-descent checklist, please.
Anti-collision lights. On. Cylinder head check. Okay. Speed to 180 knots.
Go ask the pilots how much longer till we land.
The Secretary General and his delegation should be on the ground in about 10 minutes.
Your lights in sight. Overhead, Ndola. Descending.
Roger. Report reaching 6,000 feet.
Roger.
Okay, they're 10 minutes away.
Because of the unusual flight path, the plane now needs to fly past Ndola Airport and circle back to touch down on its only runway.
Ndola was a bit, we say, out in the sticks with a little control tower and with some surrounding hills. And certainly at night it was extremely difficult to make approaches there.
180 knots, sir.
Speed is good, thank you.
You certainly have to be extremely vigilant to the hazards around such a small airport.
The crew begins the final swooping left-hand turn that will line them up with the runway below. The mission to Ndola is about to begin. A mission that could change the fate of nations.
The United Nations Security Council meeting again to deal with the difficult and dangerous Congo situation. It was resolved to call upon Belgium to withdraw her troops from...
The Congo in the early 60s was of utmost priority in the Cold War. It was of top geostrategic importance.
The Congo recently won its independence from Belgium, but the new nation's southern region of Katanga has declared itself an independent state. A bloody civil war has erupted. And with the world's richest uranium mine in Katanga, world powers, including the US and the Soviet Union, are backing opposing factions. The risk of a global catastrophe is very real.
One needs to recall bombs that were thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were supplied with uranium from Katanga.
Hammarskjöld hopes to resolve the deadly conflict and help reunite the Congo. But on the ground in Ndola, controllers are growing concerned.
Albertina, Ndola Tower, do you read?
The Secretary General's plane is overdue.
Where did the aircraft go? Why have we not seen it?
Albertina, Ndola Tower, please acknowledge.
Where are you? Why am I not hearing from you? That would have been very present in the minds of a controller at that point in time.
The controller contacts other airports in the region.
Salisbury, Ndola Airport. Have you had any word from the UN, Albertina?
Nothing at all.
Perhaps the Albertina's secret mission has taken it to a different destination at the last minute.
Lusaka, Ndola Airport. Have you had any contact with the UN flight?
Negative. No contact here.
The plane carrying one of the most important men on the planet is missing. It's a mystery that will haunt Ndola and the world for decades to come.
This November on National Geographic Network. Inspired by true events.
Calmly exit the building.
Daniel Day Kim stars as Agent Matthew Riker. Follow him as he hunts down the anthrax killer.
It's 100% lethal. We're running out of options.
Be inspired by the stories behind these great inventions that have shaped the way we live.
It's the most elegant, wonderful invention. It's the future.
Drain the Oceans returns.
Many people compare it to something out of a James Bond movie.
With new expeditions to uncover hidden treasures beneath the waves. Journey to the untamed wilderness of Africa. And witness its harsh extremes and majestic beauty. All new this November on National Geographic Network.
At the U.S.'s busiest airports and borders, watching for a crime that's about to be committed, Homeland Security has allowed us behind-the-scenes access. When passengers have drugs, when they try to smuggle them, and when they get found, they'll get arrested by this U.S. team. They love it when a sting comes together. The brand new season of To Catch a Smuggler, Friday nights at 11 on National Geographic.
Nobody knew that I had a secret. It was a secret that would get me killed.
They were once criminals.
You're just doing what you have to do to survive.
Now they play double agents.
The money was great. The police pay well. I asked myself, am I a good guy or am I a bad guy? I'm done hiding. Now I'm going to tell my story.
Locked Up Abroad, Friday nights at 9, new to National Geographic.
The impact of human ingenuity is everywhere. From the seemingly mundane,
The most elegant, wonderful invention. We all need one immediately.
to the spectacular.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We reveal the stories behind the everyday creations that have transformed the way we live.
It's the future.
Great Inventions, Wednesday nights at 9, new to National Geographic.
In the wake of Pearl Harbor, Hitler launches an attack to hurt America on home soil. Sinking hundreds of ships off the East Coast, it's quickly dubbed Torpedo Alley. But how were so many lives lost? We follow a team of marine archaeologists on a mission to investigate this little-known story to find out what really happened.
Move down!
Hitler's American Battleground starts November 18th at 9 p.m. New to National Geographic.
By dawn, news of the UN Secretary-General's disappearance is spreading fast.
We heard that he was missing, so what were we to do? We weren't going to sit around Ndola.
Clyde Sanger covered Hammarskjöld's mission in Africa for The Guardian newspaper.
A number of journalists got together and chartered a plane and flew where the plane had come down.
On the side of a hill, 9 miles west of the airport, journalists spot a gash in the trees.
And it was quite broad. It had cut through a lot of trees, and it was an open space like that, with stumps of trees.
Whatever went wrong in the skies above, the flight clearly ended with a violent impact, followed by intense fire. When local authorities arrive, they find bodies surrounded by badly scorched wreckage.
Northern Rhodesian police said, no, stay back, stay back. And so we had only a distant view. They found quite a large fuselage in one place, which we could see. And We were told afterwards that Dag Hammarskjöld was killed.
For over 8 years, Dag Hammarskjöld spoke for and personified the United Nations organization. An economist from Sweden, he took over from Secretary General.
The Secretary General had been a very famous guy, a champion of world peace. So this was a major world event.
I know that I'm speaking for all of my fellow Americans, expressing our deep sense of shock and loss in the untimely death of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Dag Hammarskjöld.
With the loss of Dag Hammarskjöld and his delegation, prospects for peace in the Congo fade. Regional power brokers have no interest in following through on the Secretary General's mission.
His mission to continue to attempt to reunite the province that he was concerned with, Katanga province, was counter to the interests of a lot of people.
I think it's pretty obvious that there were a plethora of interests out there who were not really mourning the death of Hammarskjöld.
The Cold War politics surrounding the flight to Ndola lead many to speculate that the Secretary General's plane was shot down.
Was there anyone who wanted to see Hammarskjöld's death? Where do you want me to start and where to end?
The world may soon learn more about the crash from a surprising source. Incredibly, there is a sole survivor. Against all odds, a 36-year-old UN security officer lived through the heavy impact and raging fire. Harold Julian is in critical condition, but if he can recover and tell his story, he might provide valuable evidence. While they wait to hear what Julian will say, Rhodesian government investigators begin searching for clues in the wreckage. They face a daunting task. About 80% of the fuselage is completely melted.
Every air safety investigator has a given set of things that he's really looking for. He wants to find out if the whole airplane is there. Is there something missing? He's looking for the tail, he's looking for the wingtips, he's looking for the power plants, etc. All those basic things are elemental.
That's it, guys. Slow and meticulous.
Amidst the burnt wreckage, there are also personal effects. Poignant reminders of lives cut short. Even these can help investigators learn more. Wristwatches damaged by the sudden impact reveal the exact time of the crash.
12:13.
The Secretary General's plane hit the ground 3 minutes after its last radio transmission.
What happened in those 3 minutes? Where were they in those 3 minutes? Do we have witnesses? Do we have a direction? What can we tell happened there? And indeed, was there a possibility of some interdiction from an outside force? Perhaps ground fire, somebody trying to shoot down the airplane, or from the air?
Your light's in sight. Overhead Ndola descending.
Critical questions about the flight's final moments will not be answered by a voice or data recorder. The only chance of getting a first-hand account about what happened rests with the badly injured UN security officer.
Dag said, "Go back."
Harold Julian's few brief words are astounding.
It blew up.
He suggests that the plane blew up before it crashed.
We need to go back.
And then there was the crash.
He was not in good shape after the accident. He had heavy medicine and so on. So it's hard to measure the value of his statement.
Investigators hope Julian will provide more details after he recovers, but he never does. He dies 5 days after the accident.
Did it really blow up before the crash, like he says?
Could a missile or bomb have taken down the Secretary General's plane? The separatist rebels do have a fighter jet capable of shooting down a DC-6. A French-made Fouga Magister has been attacking planes in the region.
The Fouga could have been waiting for the DC-6. They could have used force.
Investigators study the pilot's handbook for the Fouga. They discover that the fighter's maximum combat range is 419 kilometers, or 260 miles. It's a key finding because the nearest fighter base is almost 425 kilometers away.
There's no way a fighter jet took off from this base, shot down a plane here, and then made it back to the base safely.
The possibility of a Fouga fighter in the middle of the night finding this aircraft, shooting it down, returning to its base, it didn't fit the conditions that were there on that given night.
Investigators study the metal skin of the DC-6, looking for any evidence that it was ripped open by machine gun fire or a missile. They find none. Going a step further, they test ash from the crash site for the presence of explosives.
They tried to look for it. They divided the metal parts in small pieces and so on, and they didn't find anything in that way.
What's more, when investigators study key pieces of wreckage from the DC-6, everything points to a plane that was coming in for a routine landing.
Gear down, flaps out. These guys were getting ready to land.
Flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
The landing gear was down. The flaps were extended.
Okay, speed down to 120 knots.
If there had been an attack, they would have wanted to get the heck out of there. And consequently, the evidence just doesn't speak of an attack from ground or air.
Despite all the rumors, Rhodesian investigators can find nothing pointing to foul play. The cause of the crash that killed 16 people on a secret UN mission remains a mystery.
Going down! Going down! Brace! Brace!
I just got a call from Florida tracking an anthrax attack. We need to find out when it arrived and who it was targeting.
We got 28 new cases.
Encourage everyone not to over. What we're talking about is a ticking time bomb.
This is the perfect storm.
Any connections to
Stores have been weaponized.
We got to evacuate.
Who are these twisted people?
Terrorists.
Find it.
People are dying.
Shut this down.
The Hot Zone, Anthrax, starts November 29th, new to National Geographic.
It's Wild Time on Prime Time. With brand new premieres, right. All new shows every single night.
I know.
From fresh premieres to returning fan favorite series.
It's new every day.
We're doing right by Wild. The animals may be untamed, but your nights shouldn't be unplanned. So be sure to put us on your watch list.
That's clear, thank you.
The clock is ticking.
Are you guys ready?
Hold on tight. Here we go, here we go.
You will be amazed.
This is going to be great. So satisfying.
Questions or concerns?
No questions, no concerns, Commander.
top 10 worst hurricanes of the 2000s, Cyclone Nargis in 2008. Nargis develops in the Bay of Bengal. The killer cyclone came ashore, pushing a wall of water reaching as high as 16 feet. Nargis kills at least 138,000, making it one of the deadliest tropical cyclones in history. On August 2017, Harvey makes landfall along the middle Texas coast with 130-mile-per-hour winds. Non-stop rain leaves a third of the city underwater, forcing 30,000 people out of their homes and into shelters. On November 2nd, 2013, Haiyan becomes one of the strongest storms to ever hit land. The vicious storm kills more than 6,000 people in the Philippines. The destruction of Tacloban is a brutal warning that storm surge is an unstoppable force.
From the city of Caen to the trenches of Normandy, the strategy is clear to the Allies. Win at any cost. We delve deeper than ever before into the desperate final battles of World War II. Hitler's Last Stand, Thursday nights at 9 on National Geographic.
11 days after the accident in Ndola, dignitaries from around the world gather in Dag Hammarskjöld's hometown of Uppsala for a state funeral. The wreath placed by his family contains a single word: why?
It was devastating. Hammarskjöld was a person of utmost integrity. He believed in justice, he believed in equality, he believed in solidarity.
Digging into the Albertina's maintenance records, investigators make a disturbing find.
Bullet hole in engine number 2. That's not something you see every day.
Just hours before the DC-6 took off at Ndola, the plane was hit by gunfire.
There were issues with groups that would fire at aircraft on the ground, trying to disrupt things.
Mechanics repaired damage to an engine, and the plane was deemed fit to fly. The discovery leads investigators to wonder.
So, just how badly damaged was that engine?
We lost engine number 2. I need max power number 1. Max on 1.
Perhaps the damaged engine failed at a critical moment, causing the Albertina to suddenly lose altitude. If the theory is right, investigators should be able to confirm it by taking a close look at the propeller blades.
We have to check each and every one, see if there was indications of bending on those propeller blades as they entered the forest.
These things must have been spinning mighty fast to chew up this amount of wood.
The damage to the blades leaves no doubt. They were spinning normally when they hit the trees.
They are all quite symmetrical and indicative of power plants that were fully operational as the crash took place.
Well, it can't be engine failure.
Damage to the engine did not cause the crash.
According to the chart, it should have been 6,000 feet here.
Next, investigators study the navigational chart for Ndola.
The top of the hill is 4,300 feet.
They calculate the altitude the Albertina should have been flying at when it crashed.
Add 70 feet for the trees. That means he should have been nearly 1,700 feet above the treetops.
At the crash site, damage to the trees shows that the plane traveled forward for more than 750 feet before coming to rest. That distance means the plane hit the treetops at a shallow angle while descending gradually,
The plane went down in the trees in a gentle angle, just like before landing.
Okay, I'll control. You look for the lights. Roger.
Investigators wonder, when did things start to go wrong for the crew? How did the Albertina get too low?
The transcript says your lights in sight overhead, Ndola, descending. Roger. Report reaching 6,000.
The radio conversation between the pilots and the controller clearly shows that the crew had the airport in sight from a safe altitude less than 10 minutes before hitting the ground.
Your lights in sight. Overhead, Ndola.
So we know he's right here when he spots the airport at around 6,000 feet.
But the transcript reveals something more. A single, unexpected word.
Descending.
The Albertina was already descending when it flew past the airport. It's a crucial lead.
He's continuing to shed altitude here and keeps descending until he hits the hill here at an altitude of 4,290 feet.
For some reason, the pilots began their descent much too early.
It's unfathomable that there was any intention to be below 5,000 feet at that point in the approach.
Investigators are at a loss to explain how the pilots ended up misjudging their altitude so badly.
Something threw them off. What?
They consider the possibility that the crew was misled by an incorrect altimeter reading.
Estimate of beam Ndola at 2347. Arrival time 0020.
Half an hour before he expects to land, Hallenquist makes contact with the tower in Ndola.
Roger.
Controllers give him an important piece of information.
Set altimeter 230.15.
Roger.
Pilots need to calibrate their altimeters for every airport they land at, factoring in the runway's height above sea level.
The settings of the barometric pressure around the airfield were provided by the tower, and that needed to be translated from millibars to inches and placed in the window, the little adjustment window of the altimeters.
They examined the instruments, looking for any sign that the crew dialed in the wrong altimeter setting for Ndola. A set of numbers showing barometric pressure provides an answer.
The investigators checked the 3 altimeters in the plane. They found that the altimeters were working at the time and correctly set.
There was nothing wrong with the altimeters. It's another dead end.
What do we focus on next?
While crash investigators continue to search for answers, medical examiners make an astonishing discovery. It looks like some of the passengers suffered gunshot wounds.
Finding bodies in the wreckage with bullet wounds is, of course, very interesting to look into.
Perhaps there's a sinister cause to this accident after all. Investigators sift through dirt from the crash site where a critical UN peace mission ended in flames. Evidence of gunfire, shell casings, and a total of 342 bullets recovered from the bodies of the victims or nearby. Were they fired on board the plane or from outside? Investigators need to know. Ballistics experts work to find the answer. When a bullet passes through the barrel of a gun, it spins. The spinning action marks the bullet with telltale marks called rifling. But ballistic testing reveals yet another surprise. None of the bullets have any signs of rifling. They were never fired from any gun.
We've tested every one.
The persons who were wounded by the bullets also carried bullets because they were like guards. so they had ammunition on them. The investigation shows that the most likely cause of the wounds is that the bullets somehow exploded and went into the bodies.
Rhodesian investigators conclude the bullets likely exploded in the heat of the post-crash fire and were propelled into nearby bodies. Without any evidence of sabotage or attack, nor any sign of a mechanical failure, the cause of the crash is looking more and more like pilot error.
These guys are experienced. It's tough to see how they could have screwed this up.
Could the crew have somehow been distracted in the final moments of flight? A discovery on day one of the investigation lends support to that idea. When rescuers searched the wreckage, they found evidence that a UN bodyguard was in the cockpit at the time of the crash.
So this is the cockpit area, and they found the security officer's body here.
Go ask the pilots how much longer till we land.
A visitor in the cockpit can be dangerously distracting for a crew, especially when they're close to the ground.
We'll be on the ground in 3 minutes. It's a few minutes early. Flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
You have to pay attention to small movements on the instruments.
You can have your guys standing by if you want.
Your attention to detail, to the altitude, your altitude awareness needs to be extremely high.
I'll stop short of the terminal. You can have the Secretary General disembark there.
The margins are very small. It's a matter of seconds before they hit the ground.
For the Rhodesian investigators, the evidence is clear. The pilots simply lost track of their altitude and flew their plane into the ground. No sabotage, no missiles, no murder.
They go into the questions about sabotage and attacks, but they conclude that the most probable cause to the accident is some kind of pilot error.
Those who believe this was an assassination aren't swayed by the official findings.
It's a big thing when a Secretary General of the United Nations dies in an aeroplane crash. A very big thing.
Certain people believe it's just not possible that Dag Hammarskjöld was killed in a common accident. It had to be something more.
But 3 subsequent reports on the crash all agree there's no evidence of an assassination. The Hammarskjöld file is closed. Then, in 2011, 50 years after the crash, stunning new claims come to light. Author Susan Williams interviews Charles Southall, a former US intelligence officer with an astounding story. Southall was working in a signals monitoring base in Cyprus the night Hammarskjöld's plane went down.
I see the transport plane coming low.
He claims he heard a remarkable recording.
I'm going down to make a run on it.
What could be on the Albertina?
Yes, it's the Transair DC-6.
There is a possibility that there was a listening station recording the radio transmissions and sending them to the NSA.
I've hit it. There are flames, it's crashing.
Is this proof of what really happened? Evidence of a cold-blooded assassination of the UN Secretary General?
Coming up next.
This is the future.
Nat Geo Science, next on National Geographic. this November on National Geographic Network. Inspired by true events,
Calmly exit the building.
Daniel Day Kim stars as Agent Matthew Riker. Follow him as he hunts down the anthrax killer.
It's 100% lethal. We're running out of options.
Be inspired by the stories behind these great inventions that have shaped the way we live.
It's the most elegant, wonderful invention. It's the future.
Drain the Oceans returns.
Many people compare it to something out of a James Bond movie.
With new expeditions to uncover hidden treasures beneath the waves. Journey to the untamed wilderness of Africa. And witness its harsh extremes and majestic beauty. All new this November on National Geographic Network.
National Geographic Wild presents brand new America's Funniest Videos.
The show that celebrates the four-legged, two-legged, Gale, Finn. We've got a little of everything.
From the really wild to the runaway wacky.
Hop on board for this.
America's Funniest Home Videos, Animal Edition, Wednesday nights at 8:30 on National Geographic Wild.
At the U.S.'s busiest airports and borders, watching for a crime that's about to be committed, Homeland Security has allowed us behind means access. When passengers have drugs, when they try to smuggle them, and when they get found, they'll get arrested by this U.S. team. They love it when a sting comes together. The brand new season of To Catch a Smuggler, Friday nights at 11 on National Geographic.
Nobody knew that I had a secret. It was a secret that would get me killed.
They were once criminals.
You're just doing what you have to do to survive.
Now they play double agents.
The money was great. The police pay well. I asked myself, am I a good guy or am I a bad guy? I'm done hiding. Now I'm going to tell my story.
Locked Up Abroad, Friday nights at 9, new to National Geographic.
The impact of human ingenuity is everywhere. From the seemingly mundane,
The most elegant, wonderful invention. We all need one immediately.
to the spectacular,
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
we reveal the stories behind the everyday creations that have transformed the way we live.
It's the future.
Great Inventions, Wednesday nights at 9, new to National Geographic.
There's more to the NSA officer's intriguing story about the mysterious radio call on the night of the crash.
Going down to make a run on it.
He says the voice on the recording that night was not unknown. It was identified as a notorious Belgian pilot. A mercenary who flew Magister fighter planes for the rebel Katanga Air Force.
The night that the plane was actually shot down, I was working a night shift.
Paul Abram was also with the NSA at the time, stationed on the island of Crete. He claims he heard a similar radio call.
NSA was telling us on a daily basis, these are the places that Hammarskjöld will probably travel, these are the frequencies that the ground stations would be using, here is the tail number of his plane. The idea of how close he was to signing a peace agreement, and for us to know exactly where he was going and what he was doing.
I'm going down to make a run on it.
On September 18th, 1961, the most important chatter came down to, we have the plane in sight. Yes, we've checked. It's the plane.
I did it.
It's going down.
The shoot-down theory is given added weight when Williams reviews witness statements that the original investigation discounted as unreliable. They describe a second plane approaching the Secretary General's DC-6 at great speed, guns firing.
Dag Hammarskjöld was murdered. Period. He was shot down.
Williams lays out her shocking theory in an eye-opening book called Who Killed Hammarskjöld?
The book itself, I think wisely so, stopped short of a definite conclusion. All the book wanted to achieve, and it managed to achieve, is to say there are a lot of questions which are not yet sufficiently answered.
The book's stunning claims lead to action. In 2013, Sven Hammarskjöld joins a new search for the truth, gathering evidence to be presented to the United Nations.
My task was to look into the details and see if there were any new information available. And I was asked to evaluate the investigations that had been performed before.
He's part of a special commission of inquiry. It includes a group of distinguished judges who travel to Ndola to meet witnesses from the night of the crash. Many repeat their claim that they saw two planes in the air over Ndola.
I think most importantly, there are still eyewitnesses, and many of them seem to be very credible eyewitnesses, who were just ignored.
Could the death of the UN Secretary General really be an assassination? Hammarskjöld digs deeper, trying to answer that question once and for all.
When I look into the basic facts around the crash, I look at the trees and the crash site and the statements over radio and so on.
Okay, now let's see the elevations.
He studies the terrain around Ndola Airport. He notes the height of the hills. He compares what he finds to what's shown on the chart used by the UN pilots. And he makes a shocking discovery.
There's a hill here, a hill here, a hill here. There's nothing marked here. Here, where the crash site is.
The Ndola chart does not show any obstacle or higher ground west of the field.
The local terrain includes hills west of Ndola that rise to over 4,300 feet. But they're missing from the chart.
This hill could have blocked his view of the runway.
The crew might have been unaware of the height west of the field, since there were no signs of it on the chart.
Hammarskjöld also discovers that members of the crew flying the Secretary General to high-level peace talks had been on duty for 17 of the past 24 hours.
That's a long day for these guys.
Fatigue is an important factor here. The flight had lasted for 6.5 hours. And there are signs that some of the crew were quite exhausted even before the flight.
All right. Descending to 6,000, nil traffic ahead.
6,000, yes, sir.
For Hammarskjöld, the clues are beginning to add up. He feels close to solving a 50-year-old aviation mystery that has generated heated controversy the world over. After carefully reviewing all the evidence surrounding the crash of the Albertina in 1961, he now knows what went wrong in the final 3 minutes of flight. And it has nothing to do with murder.
Overhead, Ndola. Descending.
Reaching the airfield and see the lights when you have been flying for 6.5 hours, I think it's very easy for a pilot to get thinking that, oh, we're here, we're just going to land.
Passing the airport, the pilots descend below the minimum safe altitude of 5,000 feet.
4,500.
As they turn back towards the runway, they suddenly lose sight of the runway lights.
What the hell?
You go into the dark, and then you completely miss your references. And that is a dangerous situation.
I don't have the runway in sight.
The pilots don't realize that a hill is blocking their view, because the hill isn't on their chart.
Losing the visual sight of the airport would cause the pilots to look even further and lose more altitude.
Before they even know they're in danger, it's too late.
Going down! We're going down! Brace! Brace!
A fatigued crew, descending too soon, over hilly terrain that wasn't marked on their chart. Those factors combined to cause the fatal crash.
I think that's all the ingredients of a controlled flight into terrain. They are there.
We still have that issue in aviation today. Even with all the preclusive education and equipment that we have, there are still cases where we have a controlled flight into terrain.
To finally put the issue to rest, there's one last piece of evidence that investigators want to see. NSA records from the night of the crash.
They asked the NSA to release these documents, and the answer was that they remain classified as top secret and will not be released.
Given my knowledge of the recordings, tape logs, facsimiles, etc., that they have concerning this incident, I'm not the least surprised that they haven't been released. It's just in their nature.
It's been more than 50 years since the mysterious crash in Ndola. Without the NSA documents, doubts about the crash still linger. But efforts to uncover the truth continue.
For me personally, the biggest reason that justifies all these efforts, that there are still family members, relatives, close colleagues, who still live with the doubt.
Though Hammarskjöld died before he could stop the fighting in Katanga, many believe his efforts prevented the conflict from raging out of control.
If it wouldn't have been for Hammarskjöld's intervention in the Congo, it could have easily escalated into a Third World War.
Just a few months after his death, Dag Hammarskjöld became the first person to be honored posthumously with the Nobel Peace Prize.
We should remember Dag Hammarskjöld and the others as human beings who were willing to risk their lives on a dangerous mission to contribute to more peace on our Earth.
Every Monday to Friday at